Gankers and griefers and care bears, oh my. That'll make more sense later because I'm going to explain what PvE, PvP, and PvX mean. These are modes of gameplay and they tend to polarize people into one camp or another. I'll try to explain the source of conflict, how some games try to address it, and give you some practical advice if you find yourself enjoying a game but maybe not really enjoying the mode of play. Before I get started, I want to let you know that this is part of a series where I explain some common game lingo with the intention of helping people who want to learn more about gaming. So if that's you, be sure to check out the corresponding game lingo playlist as well. Now, let's start with PvE, which means player versus environment, or some call it PvM, which means player versus monster. This is the traditional game mode where your character or a group of characters plays against computer-controlled threats. You typically have to fight monsters in open-world combat or in dungeons that have certain requirements to enter. You might also have to deal with environmental threats like weather events, traps, or poisons. And you might have to gather limited resources and become proficient in certain skills that are required to survive or to accomplish story objectives. In any case, you're playing against the computer, not other players. In fact, in most modern online PvE games, you're often cooperating with other players against the computer. People who prefer PvE games usually say they like feeling as if they're playing through a story and enjoy the sense of accomplishment that comes from achieving story objectives. Also, some PvE players really enjoy the strategic aspect of resource gathering, crafting unique items, and trying to build and accumulate wealth in the game. If that all sounds boring to you, then perhaps you might prefer a PvP style of gameplay. PvP means player versus player. This is a competitive form of gameplay where you're competing against other players in the game and not only against computer-controlled threats. It's common for PvP to have specific team limits such as one-on-one, team versus team, and battle royale. But some games are more open-ended and can support impressive battles involving several thousands of players. It's also common for PvP games to have different challenge modes, such as escort, where your team has to escort some cargo to a destination while the other team opposes you. Control, where you must hold certain key locations while the opposing team tries to take them. And deathmatch, where it's a fight to the death. The details vary with the story of each game, and some support respawning, but PvP is all about competing against other players. PvP games are also popular as esports because it's entertaining to watch some highly skilled players competing against each other. But MMORPG game developers want to appeal to all players, so they're constantly trying to blend PvE and PvP game modes in a way that will work for both. That brings us to PvX, which means player versus anything. PvX games try to incorporate both PvE and PvP game modes, but not many actually do it well. Most of them just want to market the game to both types of players, so they just jam something together without carefully thinking about the consequences. For example, some games will have a PvE story that just ends up dumping you into a PvP game after the story is played through. In those games, the PvE is just an extended training mode for the PvP game, and that really doesn't qualify as a PvX game in my mind. Another poor example of PvX, in my opinion, is when you have to opt into PvP, either by logging into a separate server or by changing modes from a neutral location. With the separate server approach, it's almost like playing two different games, and the player pool is reduced, so it's not usually that much fun. With a switch-on-demand approach, you often have that same problem, but also, some players will use it as a way to cause trouble and then avoid retaliation. The best PvX games have a more open PvX system, where players encounter both PvE and PvP elements as a natural course of playing the game. These games then introduce a penalty system, such as bounties or corruption, to make it more costly to attack another player unless you're provoked. To me, these are true PvX games because there isn't a hard line between PvE and PvP, but just naturally occurring situations in the game that might expose you to each style of gameplay. In any case, when games try to put two different types of players together into the same sandbox, some amount of conflict is bound to happen, because each of them is trying to play a different game. PvE players aren't really interested in PvP competition and just want to enjoy playing through a story or gathering resources and improving their skills. So PvP players will call these players care bears, because they avoid PvP at all costs and they say it ruins the game for them. PvP players live for the thrill of competition and aren't very interested in PvE other than what's required to obtain certain PvP advantages. So two practices that often emerge from these types of players is ganking and griefing. Ganking is when multiple players gang up on another player to overwhelm and defeat them quickly. It's normally only done during wars or when the resources obtained outweigh the associated penalties. Usually the players who are targeted will have been in the game long enough to know how to avoid becoming a victim and will be able to retaliate and recover their losses. Unless they are griefers targeting new players. Just like internet trolls, griefers are players that enjoy causing grief to other players despite the penalties. So don't ask a griefer why they killed you because your tears only make the victory sweeter. Instead, assess the situation by taking a look at the game design and asking yourself what type of game it really is and where you fit in it. If you prefer PvE, but the game is really a PvP game in disguise, then you either have to pivot your strategy or leave the game and find something that's better matched for your preferred style of gameplay. The same is true if you prefer PvP but realize the game is favoring PvE players. In either case, don't waste your time trying to play a different game than what the game creators intended. Ultimately, my best advice, like any creative work, is to allow yourself to experience it as it was intended by its creators, and then decide if you like it or not. You might just find that you're a little PvE and a little PvP depending on the game. Most of us are like that. For example, Borderlands 3 has a really fun multiplayer co-op PvE game. Fortnite Battle Royale is a very popular PvP game. And I've played a lot of different PvX games over the years, but I'm really looking forward to Ashes of Creation. They're really trying to get the balance right on many aspects of the game, and I'm excited to see how it evolves. Do you have a favorite PvX game? Tell me about it in the comments. I'd really like to hear about it. Well, I hope I've helped you understand more about these terms and what type of gameplay to expect from each. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a second to click the like button. Remember that this is part of a series, so if you want to see more game lingo videos, click on the playlist right over there. And also, subscribe to see when I post more of them.